Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kirchak. Coming up in today's newscast, Prime Minister Netanyahu appoints a new defense minister.
The United Arab Emirates opens its doors to Israeli tourists.
And we'll reveal which Israeli restaurant has been named as one of the top 25 eateries in the world.
All right, to start the program now, let's turn to Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, where Israelis gathered to mark the Hebrew calendar anniversary of the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin.
During his tenure in office, Rabin became best known for signing the Oslo Accords and the Jordan-Israel peace agreement, which just passed into its 26th year. But Rabin was murdered in 1995 by political extremist Yigal Amir, and the nation's never been the same since.
All right, and now moving on. In a surprise decision on Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has appointed the head of the new right party, Naftali Bennett, to be defense minister. And for the past year, Netanyahu himself has held both the prime minister and defense minister portfolios himself, among others.
But now the cabinet voted to approve Bennett's appointment on Sunday, and as part of the deal, the Likud and the New Right have also agreed to form a joint faction for the 22nd Knesset.
What does that mean for defense, though? Well, Bennett and Netanyahu have had a long-standing history, and Bennett previously served under Netanyahu as education minister. But as far as security is concerned, Bennett takes a harsh stance on Palestinian militancy, advocating for tough retaliation against terror groups in Gaza, Iran, and proxy group Hezbollah. And he'll be filling the position until a new government is put in place.
The snap decision seems mainly intended to impede rival Benny Gantz's coalition talks. However, as Netanyahu looks to solidify the ranks behind his right-wing bloc, Likud Knesset member Tzachi Hanegbi even admitted as much over the weekend. In response to the move, though, blue and white officials blasted the prime minister for appointing a temporary placeholder to the most sensitive establishment in the state.
Meanwhile, on Saturday, wild card and so-called kingmaker from the Israel Beitenu party, Avigdor Lieberman, gave both Netanyahu and Gantz an ultimatum: agree to President Rivlin's shared unity plan or else. He explains that both Netanyahu and Gantz must meet and make compromises, and that whoever makes the wrong decision, quote-unquote, we will support the other side. Continuing to shore up support amongst the right, however, Netanyahu has already rejected Lieberman's ultimatum, saying he's bluffing with no cards to play.
And now joining us with more in the world of Israeli politics, we have columnist for Newsweek and editor of HistoryCentral.com, Mark Schulman, and Dr. Martin Sherman, the founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. So, my first question for you both is, what are the responses in the political spectrum regarding this appointment of Bennett as the new defense minister?
Well, I think the political spectrum was surprised. On the other hand, like you said, initially it was just a political move. I mean, there's a certain illogic in putting someone on a job very short period of time. In any job, they say it takes at least a year to learn your job. The Minister of Defense is one of the most difficult jobs in Israel. And it's like, politically, it was a great move in terms of Netanyahu. He stopped any chance that Bennett would join Gantz at this point. On the other hand, it sort of says, the Ministry of Defense, we can give that away, we can do this, we can do that. I mean, listen, he was a successful Minister of Education. Not so successful in the first year, but by the second and third years, he'd become a very successful and effective Minister of Education. But Netanyahu fired him. That was just, 6 months ago, 7 months ago? He fired him from Minister of Education for political reasons. Now,
well, he left the original party that he was a part of.
That's not true. Basically, it was a different rationale completely, because he fired not only Netanyahu, he fired Ayelet Sheked, who were good ministers, I agree, but they didn't get through the threshold. They weren't represented.
But there was no legal reason to fire them. He fired them for political reasons.
Because the party belonged to the Jewish home.
He didn't have
the ministry portfolio belonged to the Jewish home party.
There's no portfolio belonged to anyone. There's an interim government at the moment. We forget that.
In April.
All the way through.
All right,
We've never
Dr.
had
Sherman,
a real government now since the first election.
I must say, it doesn't seem to change the basic arithmetic of coalition formation. I don't think that there was ever a serious danger of Bennett joining the blue and white, because even with Bennett in blue and white, they would probably need the support of the Arab government. And I can't see Bennett, and certainly not Avigdor Lieberman, serving in a government whose entire existence is dependent on the anti-Zionist Arab bloc. I find it very difficult to believe.
So in your eyes, essentially, this doesn't really mean anything?
I'm not quite sure that I understand the logic. There might be some other reason. There may have been a feeling that they wanted to bring in Bennett closer to Likud. But I don't think Bennett was ever really in serious danger of joining.
Going back to one of your previous comments just now, do you also then agree with Netanyahu that you believe Lieberman is bluffing, that he won't sit with the blue and white if Netanyahu refuses the Rivlin deal?
For Lieberman to go into a government that's dependent on, as I say, anti-Zionist, in many ways anti-Israel, the Arab bloc, for him would be political suicide. I can't see him.
Even if it prevents a third election?
Even if it prevents a third election, because what does that mean? That means basically, I mean, let's suppose you have to have military operation against Gaza, or action against Syria. Are you really going to have that vote or any vote on that being dependent on Arab approval?
And the Likud's not going to support from the outside?
Sorry?
The Likud won't support the government at that moment from the outside if that comes down to it? If there's a vote to do a military action in Gaza...
I don't know.
I mean, come on. Realistically, you have to assume that the Likud is going to... If it comes down to a military issue... Why not? They're going to oppose an attack on Gaza? The Likud's going to vote against it? I mean, let's be realistic here.
Are they going to be privy to all the details?
Yes, the head of the opposition will be privy to the details.
I'm not sure.
I mean, the reality is, look,
we're 50. Do you really think it is a reasonable scenario for the government of Israel to be dependent on 13 anti-Zionist votes?
I think it's a reasonable scenario for Lieberman right now. He's going to have not much of a choice. I think there's at least a 60 or 70% chance at this point. Because if Netanyahu's already...
Lieberman was the people who denoted the Arabs as the fifth column. Now he's going to support the fifth column in the Israeli government.
He's going to support creating a government...
Which one?
Wait. He's going to support creating a government that will bring about the changes that he wants in terms of state and religion. They can do that relatively quickly. And at that point,
he's overturning the next government. So what?
Well, it won't be overturned.
Well, let's talk about the potential for third election. So, because I mean, that's what everybody is trying to avoid.
I mean,
here, right?
there's only two possibilities right now. I mean, we know there are three possibilities. One is Lieberman gives in and he joins the Likud government of some form or another. He's made that very clear that he's not going to do that with the religious as part of it.
Right.
He could, which is a joke, because he supported.
Forget the joke at the moment.
He's made deal after deal after deal with the Haredi parties.
You're saying that Lieberman has.
He previously did.
Lieberman has,
but he has set his tone at this point and made it very clear that his political future is based on the fact that he wants a secular government. That's his Alamo right now, quite clearly. He's not going beyond that.
Okay.
So that's one option. Option two is third elections, obviously, and option three is a minority government that he basically is. We're saying he's nothing behind his threat. But he's going to stand up to his threat.
There's no reality. There's no option four where the left and the right maybe break down their borders a little bit.
No, that requires Netanyahu to agree.
All right, now
Netanyahu's not agreeing at this point. He already rejected it. He could agree at the last moment, but he's already rejected it. Now, the only reason that the Likud could fall apart and stop supporting Netanyahu is if they really, really think they're about to lose power. The threat has to be very, very real for it to work.
Now, I want to turn to Dr. Sherman here because my question for you is, let's say we end up facing third elections. What do you think is going to happen then?
Well, it's very difficult. What's happened in the last election was really perverse because the electorate actually rewarded the villain, because the person responsible for those elections was Avigdor Lieberman, and he actually increased his strength because he imposed the repeat elections on the electorate. I'm not sure that's going to work again. I think the only reasonable scenario that we can be able to get a government that can be formed is that Lieberman will be punished by the electorate this time, and the votes will go back to their natural location in the right wing. Because if you look at the breakdown at the moment, if you look at the electorate which does not oppose Israel being the nation state of the Jewish people, 55 mandates went to the right, and 44 went to the left center, and the remaining 8 was Lieberman. Lieberman got most of his votes from the people who support this.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see what happens, guys. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. All right. In other news, as the pre-indictment corruption hearings against Prime Minister Netanyahu continue, his supporters are taking to the street. ILTV's Shanna Fuld has the story.
leave it to Israelis to turn a protest into a dance party. Saturday night, supporters of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu showed up on the plaza of the Tel Aviv Museum in the city center, calling for
equal application of the law.
The Israeli leader is facing potential charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in connection with 3 different cases that stretch all the way back to 2011. Netanyahu has denied all the allegations, maintaining his innocence, and accusing the Israeli media of conducting a witch hunt in order to unseat him from power.
We demand, first of all, to investigate all the wrongdoings that was made by the illegal attorneys based on fake charges.
Protesters we spoke with tonight say they just want the law to be applied equally to everyone, and right now they think that's not the case for Prime Minister Netanyahu.
We feel that they are trying to do a kind of push, as they was used to do in Africa or South America, and we are again.
This isn't the first protest, though, as demonstrators have made this a Saturday night routine for a handful of weeks, and have also collected outside of Attorney General Avichai Mandelblatt's home in Petah Tikva.
There was no due process. They're taking an issue, making it a precedent over an elected prime minister.
The Attorney General is expected to decide whether or not to file charges against Netanyahu by the end of November. And if the Israeli Prime Minister is ultimately indicted for bribery, Mandelblatt would most likely rule that Netanyahu could no longer serve as Prime Minister. Still, though, criminal charges would not be a legal impediment to Netanyahu running for re-election should Israel face 3rd elections. If re-elected, however, it is highly expected that a legal battle will ensue.
Moving on, for the past 25 years, Jordan has been leasing 2 pieces of land to the State of Israel as part of their negotiated peace. But last year, the Hashemite Kingdom announced that instead of renewing its lease, it would be taking back control of the land.
Well, as of today, Jordan has officially reclaimed the 2 sites, while Israel has closed them off as military zones. And ILTV's Asaf Nissan is here with the scoop. So our first question for you is, what are these sites, and why was this deal made in the first place?
So these 2 pieces of sites, Naharaim and Sofar, both of them were given to the Israeli government 25 years ago as a lease, as a special part of as a special closure, the agreement, the peace agreement between Jordan and Israel, which ironically just celebrated its 25th year. Mm-hmm. And those pieces of land actually were given to Israel to work on, to prosper. The closest settlements to it, of course, worked in the fields and actually contributed greatly to Israeli agriculture and economy.
And well, there was also the Peace Isle, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Peace Isle. So the Peace Isle itself is in Naharaim, itself, and actually is also a commemory for, if I remember correctly, 17 girls that were murdered in 1997 in the area by a Jordanian soldier.
But then, okay, so then what is going to happen to these families who have been working in these 2 plots of land now that Jordan is taking back this land?
Right, there are farmers that are working this land.
So both areas, well, it's a different it's divided into to both of the areas pretty much by itself. Mm-hmm. Naharaim itself has been closed off completely, been passed back to the Jordanian government, including the Peace Isle, and Sofar, on the other hand, has actually gotten an increase in the lease until April 2020.
Okay.
Which is then going to be the official.
It's like a stay of execution, so to speak.
So it's sort of, but they're still letting the Israeli farmers to work there. 31 farmers that actually have to go in day out with a passport, but have already begun today.
What does this mean for relations between Israel and Jordan? Was this expected to take place, or was there leniency that was?
I mean, it was expected because the Jordanians did give us a year's notice. Reason B is, of course, the pressure inside. The Muslim Brotherhood, the opposition, people who don't want normalization with Israel have impacted pretty much King Abdullah, and that's why he decided to retract back the lands to Jordan.
But there's also, I mean, like you said, they gave us that 1-year warning, which was part of the agreement original agreement, but that shows something about kind of maybe the animosity towards Israel outside of the government in Jordan.
True. I mean, there's also a lot of trouble in the fact that the country itself of course, is built on mostly Palestinian immigrants and people from the outside. So, of course, the public there is more affected by what's happening in Israel, especially as Jordan being the keeper of the holy places.
All right. Well, I mean, it's interesting to see if there's going to be kind of more of a response to this coming down the line in April of 2020. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, now moving on. For most Israelis, traveling to Dubai was a distant dream because Israel and the United Arab Emirates don't have official diplomatic relations, and Israelis haven't been allowed to enter the UAE on an Israeli passport. But it looks like that is about to change. The United Arab Emirates is preparing for the so-called Olympic Games of Innovation, aka the 2020 World Expo, and they're opening their doors to Israelis.
Touted as the best place to showcase the world's latest achievements, the World Expo is held every 5 years in a different city around the globe. And Israel is, as usual, a participant to the summit. But as the Jewish state and the Arab UAE have no formal relations, Israel's invitation, which was announced in April this past year, makes for major headlines, especially as the Gulf state is now extending visas to all Israeli tourists who want to come for the 6-month-long event.
And better yet, sources say that if all goes well, the doors to Dubai may stay open for Israeli tourists indefinitely, starting in 2020. So, well, that would be starting in 2020. So get ready to pack your bags and head for the Gulf because it seems like positive relations are rising on the fast track. In fact, Israel's first robotics team even just returned from the UAE, having placed second in the annual competition.
All right, now we've all heard of the earthquake warnings, but how bad could it be? Well, if the models are correct, the answer is not pretty. Now, you may not know it, but Israel sits right along the Great Rift Valley, a fault line that travels down the length of the Jordan River. And any amateur geologist will tell you that that means our Earth shakes. In fact, since the start of November, there have been 5 earthquakes in the region, 4 of which hit Israel directly. But there's good news and bad news. The good news is that thankfully, most of the quakes in Israel have only averaged around 2.5 on the Richter scale, with very few ever being felt. The bad news is that a larger, more devastating earthquake is expected to be around the corner. According to seismic experts, it's estimated that once every 100 years, a devastating quake occurs along the rift. And the last major quake was 92 years ago on July 11, 1927, 90 years after the quake of 1837 that destroyed the city of Tzfat.
All right, now, you know what time it is. Let's turn to something a little more positive. It's time to learn about some more new and amazing places to visit here in the Holy Land that will hopefully not be destroyed by earthquakes. And this is a side of Israel that most people haven't seen before.
Yes, and it is brought to you by Visit to Israel, one of the world's leading Instagram pages about how to travel in the Holy Land. But without any further ado, let's turn now to ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh for the details.
Hi guys, so after hosting Cruising Israel, I really feel like I got a true traveling experience here in Israel, but every time I log on to Visit to Israel Instagram page, I find secret spots that I've never heard of and never traveled to. So I'm here to give you guys 2 secret spots that you should definitely check out.
Let's hear it.
The first one is the Red Canyon in the Eilat Mountains, which is one of Israel's most stunning and accessible hiking trails. It's actually just a short 20-minute drive from the southernmost city of Eilat and offers an adventurous hike through the beautiful Red Canyons. Now,
wow, look at that color.
I know.
Yeah,
so speaking of that color, why is it called the Red Canyon? Well, it gets its name from the phenomenon which occurs when the sunlight hits the rocks and turns it into a red-orange color, which is beautiful for some Instagram pictures and from stories so people get jealous.
This is what Emmanuel cares the most about.
Of course, you gotta have the good scenery for the good shot. You gotta think about all those things.
All right, so another reason to visit the Red Canyon. You'll
Exactly.
have some good photos to take.
And some more attractions that you can actually find in the area are the narrow sandstone canyon, the red sandstone formations, and geological transitions. So much more that you can check out.
A lot of really
when you
awesome
go.
kind of natural formations.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, that I didn't even know about.
Next?
Right.
What's up next?
So another place that I haven't visited to but would love to is the Hula Valley in the Upper Galilee region, which is actually a magical place filled with so much history, nature, bike and hiking trails, and actually a really interesting miracle that occurred there, but I'll let you know in a second. It's said to be the best place for spotting exotic birds because the location is on a major migration route for birds that are traveling from Europe to Asia and Africa. Now, actually tens of thousands of birds can be found here of over 200 species. You can see so many different types of birds that bird lovers would go crazy over.
It's like my childhood dream to be in a location like this. Okay, continue.
Yes, and even a lot of endangered animals in the wild, such as the white-tailed eagle, have actually been reintroduced to this nature valley. So it's beautiful. What's super unique is that actually the Hula Valley, up until the 1950s, was actually a malarial swamp. It was drained, which enabled settlement and then agriculture in the area. However, the central lake was kept as the Hula Valley Nature Reserve that you can check out as well. So
no more malaria there.
No more.
Okay,
Don't
well,
worry about it.
All right, we'll all visit.
All right, well, we have 2 new locations that we have to go and visit
Absolutely.
ourselves. I feel
Definitely
like
on the weekend.
ashamed of how
I
little
love
we
it.
travel around the state of Israel.
I love that we're always surprised by it, even though it's small. That's
2 more
great.
secret destinations.
And
2 more
Well-
spots for some Instagram pictures.
Emmanuel, thank
Emmanuel.
you so much for
Of
coming in.
course.
All right, now.
Yes. Now, we hope you're not too hungry because an Israeli restaurant has just been ranked as one of the top 25 restaurants in the world, and for good reason.
Yeah, the eatery that's making everybody drool is called Uri Buri. It's located in the Israeli coastal city of Akko, which is probably why it's become famous for its seat-to-table experience. Uri Buri, that's how you say it in Hebrew, serves Eastern Galilean cuisine and specializes in seafood. And what's even cooler is that the restaurant is located in a 400-year-old Ottoman-era building overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, so the view isn't too shabby either.
No. So who's behind this killer ranking, though? Well, Uri Buri was just listed in TripAdvisor's 2019 Traveler's Choice Awards as one of the best fine dining restaurants in the world, with other top-ranking restaurants including Epicure in Paris, the Jane in Antwerp, and the Black Swan in Oldstead in the UK. And the restaurants are ranked based on travelers' opinions. So Uri Buri has over 1,500 reviews on TripAdvisor and a respectable 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is pretty impressive given all the anonymous haters out there.
Yeah, what's impressive also is your ability to say Uri Buri so many
man,
times.
yeah.
But of course, this isn't the first time that Israeli cuisine has been spotlighted just this year. The swanky French list, La Liste, which every year ranks the world's top 1,000 restaurants, featured 13 Israeli establishments in its 2019 edition, and it ranked Israel in 21st place overall out of the 64 countries that were listed. So now you know why we live here, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We just we have an hour left until dinner time.
I know.
Though, so it's a
I
lot
know
to
you're
think
excited
about.
about. Maybe you can go visit.
We can hop on the train. We could be there in like 40 minutes.
And you could say his name 5 times.
And I can
fast.
say his name 5 times fast.
All right. Anyhow, the famous Jewish-American actor Shia LaBeouf has been out of the TV and film spotlight for some time now, but after taking a break, he's back in the headlines for his new movie, Honey Boy.
And guess what? He made the film with an Israeli director. ILTV's Nittany Manson has more details on the story.
He started out as a child star, but turned into a scandalous, somewhat uncontrollable adult artist. Shia LaBeouf is best known for his role in on-screen productions like Even Stevens, Holes, and Disturbia. But in 2017, he was arrested for public drunkenness and his reputation took a big hit.
Do it!
Having some time to reflect, he wrote what is now a critically acclaimed film, which dives deep into his troubled upbringing.
What am I being arrested for? What am I being arrested for, huh? You think you're hot shit? Cause you don't know how good I am at what I do.
It's called Honey Boy and has been picked up by Israeli-born film director Alma Harel. LaBeouf said she was by far the best director he's ever worked with and admitted he thought she was out of her mind for agreeing to work with him on the film, saying he didn't think the story would even get funding. Honey Boy examines the relationship LaBeouf had with his father, whom he had not spoken with in 7 years and who suffered from alcoholism. More than just exposing the raw and at times abusive relationship, LaBeouf plays the role of his father in the film.
Think it through. What's your mother got a job for?
Just in case.
In case what?
I don't
In case you fail. In case it don't work out. Yes, man. She's filling your head full of fear. I pump you full of strength. Because we're on a team, and I know you got what it takes. You're stubborn, I know it. That's why I'm here.
And while writing the piece may have been therapy, for viewers it was an enormous hit. LaBeouf accepted a screenwriting award for the work earlier this week and said that after showing the world this film, nothing is too personal.
How do you think that feels?
You wouldn't be here if I didn't pay you.
I just got the shippers. How?
It looks incredible.
I know.
Well,
I
and
really want to go and see it.
Yeah, and you know, we hear in interviews with Shia, he said he actually lied to his father that he was going to play him. He told him Mel Gibson was originally going to play him, and
then
that's
he said,
why
nope,
he signed off on the role.
Just kidding, it's going to
Pulled
be
the
me.
old switch.
I don't know. That must be such a trip to be acting
Gosh.
I mean, literally playing the role of your own father.
You could see the catharsis on the screen, but yeah, let's move on.
All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight and tomorrow should both be clear to partly cloudy and comfortable, with lows tonight around 67 or 19 degrees Celsius. The only exceptions are in Jerusalem and Eilat, with about lows of 58 and 71, or 14 and 22 degrees Celsius, respectively. Then tomorrow the high will sit around 85 or 29 degrees Celsius, so keep the sunscreen handy.
And that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.49 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kirchuk. Thanks so much for watching.